In a admirable thing about Texas, they say that out loud. I mean, Kim Atkins, our mutual friend, Mark McKinnon, did an interview for Showtime ahead of the election that basically articulated what Matthew Dow just said and said that, why don't you make it easier? Well, because then more people would vote. I want to read you what President Biden just said. He was asked questions by the White House press corps at the end of his COVID remarks, and he said this, quote, "It is reassuring to see that for-profit operations and businesses are speaking up about how these new Jim Crow laws are just antithetical to who we are." The president creating some space for companies to go through this process and land on the side of opposing what, in the president's words, are Jim Crow laws. But this does feel like a new front where neither party is really in control of what these companies do. They're making the kind of calculations that Matt Dowd just delineated.
Well, I think it's an indication of how far we've come. I mean, boycotts have been a tool for civil rights since Martin Luther King and the Freedom Riders used them decades ago. What we're seeing that's different now, that was different even just a few years ago when the Black Lives Matter movement started and when other movements demanding civil rights and civil equality started, is that you are seeing more people. It's not just Black folks that are calling out this stuff, that are calling for these boycotts. You're seeing the Black Lives Matter movement and other civil rights movement gain popularity, gain support from outside of that community. And so these companies at base, I take what was said, that they want to reflect their values, but they also want to reflect their bottom lines. And if they see that there is broad support for expanding access to voting, that people are seeing exactly what is happening here, and that by supporting and continuing in these states may cost them their bottom lines, they're reacting to it. It's reflecting what is basically the marketplace of ideas and the free market in the private sector. The free market is something that Republicans used to tout as a value, and now, until it's moving against them in their really bare political calculation that they realize right now they are not winning on ideas. The only way that they can win is by keeping the other side from voting and making it hard. And so that is what all of this is about.
And you have to understand that companies hire from staffs like Mitch McConnell's and his Democratic counterparts. They know exactly where public opinion is on all these issues that you're talking about, Kim. And the reason that after George Floyd was killed by Derek Chauvin last summer, that every company, and I've said this on the show, you could not buy laundry detergent without finding out the maker of your laundry detergent's mission statement on equality. You could not, download a meditation. I mean, every company in the world affirmed their commitment to equality and to be in line with the racial reckoning. But the point here is that support for the aims of Black Lives Matter moved 30% between the time that it was first in the news during President Obama's administration and when George Floyd was killed at the hands of police. And I wonder, I want to read you some of what Mark Elias said from Democracy Docket. Corporate America has gotten on board with voter registration efforts en masse because they saw marketing and economic opportunity. Same can be said for the fight against voter suppression laws. And if corporations really believe in protecting the right to vote, now's the time for them to show it. Americans have many ways to make their voices heard at the ballot box and with their wallets. Following the lead of voting rights advocates on the ground in states such as Georgia and Texas can show companies that there's a right side to be on in the fight against voter suppression, even after Election Day. And it pays to be on it. The success of sort of this movement seems to be that there's a right side and a wrong side. And I wonder, Kim, if you think there's sort of a dam-breaking moment happening here.
I think so. And I think we really saw that particularly with the efforts that were made in the 2020 election to ensure that people in the middle of a pandemic, in an election of the century, were able to have access to votes. Think about it. I mean, I pay attention to fashion. I was looking on sites and there were people selling boots, T-shirts, sweatshirts, designer and luxury goods with the words "vote" on it. Mm-hmm. I mean, these companies aligned with where the pulse of the nation was, and that is why you are seeing this. It is both a good moral move for them and also a good business move for them. And it's really important to see that happening right now. That's precisely why Martin Luther King called for boycotts. We're seeing the power of that in real time right now.
Matt, Kim is high fashion. I am not. I'll give a lower tech model of voting being a virtue. I remember when I was little, I used to go to the voting precinct with my mom, and it was a virtue. It was good to vote early in the day because you got to wear your I voted sticker all day long, and you felt virtuous. The Republicans aren't just pushing laws in 47 states, 108 of them built on a lie that most of them publicly or privately know was a lie. They're also sort of trying to rewrite the paradigm of voting as a virtue.
Well, to me,
absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I'm going to wait and see if I believe this is a dam-breaking moment, because I've thought there has been so many moments over the last 5 years that were like, well, this is a pivotal moment. And then I think it fundamentally, whether or not this is a dam-breaking moment, just like it was in civil rights, is whether not activists, whether good people of good conscience whose main thing is whether or not I vote will show up and respond to what's going on. And the companies will then respond in the aftermath of that. They might be doing good moves today, but I think it's totally dependent on what happens in the 2022 elections. And if the Republicans don't pay a price for what they're doing in state after state after state after state about taking away voting rights or putting impediments in voting rights, the companies are going to watch that. And so I think it's incumbent upon people showing up and voting. Not only how their consumer choices and what they buy and all that is important, but in the end, politicians and companies will respond to a movement that shows up at the polls. And that's when we'll know whether this was a dam-breaking moment.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.